This video series is supposed to be about the demonic power behind Christian nations. So far, I don't think I've said a word about demons or about Christian nations. And in fact, we've got stuck for several videos talking about Solomon, and in particular the Queen of Sheba's visit to him, which, surface value, arguably seems to have nothing to do with the topic we're supposed to be talking about. So what's the deal? What's going on here? Well, some of you may have guessed, you know your Bibles, that there's some connection between this 666 talents of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year and the notorious use of the same word in the book, or the same number in the book of Revelation, where it says, "Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. This beast being associated with the dragon, who is also called the serpent of old, Satan, and elsewhere in Revelation 17, the beast is associated with a false prophet. Revelation never talks about an antichrist, never uses that word, but many people associate false prophets with antichrists, and so certainly they're just an array of bad guy figures here between demons, Antichrist, false prophet, beast, serpent, and the number 666 is right in the mix there. Something that seems demonic or satanic, at least certainly bad news going on there. So what kind of connection is going on here between these two numbers? We'll have to wait for Revelation to unpack, but it's not just a coincident, numerological coincidence. Oh, you happen to have the same. Look, this verse is we found is incredibly important. This isn't just some obscure. This is why we've been spending time on it. Is that this is not just some obscure verse that we happen to pick out of the Old Testament. It turns out this is actually. I've made the case that this actually is 1 Kings 10:14. Solomon's 666 talents of gold is really a hinge verse where all of the blessings that Israel has been accumulating up to this point, from this point onward, not only Solomon personally falls off the cliff in his rebellion against the rules for kings and his own idolatry on a personal level, but because of that, all of the blessings given to Israel start to unwind, all the way down to exile in Babylon, where the temple has been burned and the Shekinah presence has been lost, the kingdom's been divided. And so I've said that 1 Kings 10:14 really is a hinge verse. It starts to look a little bit suspicious, curious, that the hinge verse that the entire Old Testament story arc turns on has this number 666, which is also this greatly mysterious and notoriously evil key verse in the book of Revelation. It starts to look like more than just a coincidence, and in fact, we'll see why I believe that is the case, that these two texts are connected, and yet still, what does this have to do with Christian nations? Well, in particular, the Christian nation part, we'll have to wait for far more explanation when we get to the book of Revelation. At this point, the Christ hasn't even come yet, so much less Christian nations. That'll have to be wait, but it's just as far as a small preview, taste, or a hint. Solomon is, in some sense, the perfect example. In some sense, it seems like Solomon is the worst possible. How can you say such a terrible figure as the beast or the false prophet could be associated with a guy who wrote 3 books of the Bible and made the temple in Jerusalem that God came to dwell in? And yet, when you think about it for a minute, in another sense, that's actually what makes Solomon the perfect example of God's people getting off track, God's people going astray. Because if Solomon, the son of David, who wrote 3 books of the Bible, can go so unhinged and go so off track and lead Israel so astray that they lose the blessings that they had accumulated, if it's an argument from the greater to the lesser, if things could go so wrong with Solomon, then who are you going to put your trust in? Are you going to put your trust in your favorite Christian leader in the church? You're going to put your trust in your favorite Christian politician or king or emperor? If Solomon failed so miserably, then you can't put your trust in anyone other than the ultimate son of David, Messiah himself. So that's just a little hint of how this is going to come to play in Christian nations later on. But then how about the demonic part? What does any of this have to do with demons? Well, we see a little bit of demons in when Solomon's wives turn him away from turn his art after other gods. And what are other gods other than demonic spiritual powers? He goes after the goddess of the Sidonians and the abomination of the Ammonites. He goes after Chemosh and Molech and all of these false gods, false idols, are just spiritual forces of evil. And I use the term demonic to kind of encompass the whole evil spiritual realm. Satan is demonic. Demons are demonic. So this is Revelation 9:20 talks about it connects worshiping idols with worshiping demons. There's demonic power behind false gods and behind idols. So Solomon's falling into worshiping idols and false gods is demon worship. We'll see more about that again in Revelation. But there's also another way in which the Solomon story has a demonic dimension to it, but that deserves its own video.